is Megan Mermaid, and this is my show, Conversations with Friends, where I interview real people who are also my friends that are doing extraordinary things. So I'm so excited today to have my beautiful friend, Lisa Espinosa here. She is a pioneer in modern priestessing, and she has so much wisdom. And so how are you doing, Lisa? I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited, Megan, to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me. Yes.
Yes, thank you for saying yes. So I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about yourself and what you're up to.
Yeah. As you mentioned, I'm really, part of the work I do is helping women to connect with their priestess path. And the way this started actually was a middle school teacher. I taught seventh grade for about 10 years. And that was absolutely part of my purpose. I love working with seventh graders. It was such a precious age, even though a lot of teachers were like, "Ooh, not the seventh graders." I felt like that was my calling at the time. And then I was going through a lot of things. I had a pretty traumatic divorce and all of these things that were unfolding in my life. I really started delving into yoga, and I was always a spiritual person, but really that deepened it. When you go through really challenging things, that can be a time where you really, I think you either completely lose your path, or it really pushes you to go inward and really connect with your heart and really connect with, like, okay, why am I here? And so it was all of these things that were happening that as I was having a meditation practice, I clearly received the message that it was time to leave my career as a teacher, which was a huge decision because I wasn't anywhere near retirement age, obviously. And also, I was having a lot of success as a teacher. By that point, I'd been teaching for almost 10 years. I had my master's, I was nationally board certified. I had all these kind of like awards. There were all these like doors of opportunity opening. So logically, it didn't make any sense for me to be like, I'm leaving teaching. But that was what my soul, it was a very strong, like, your time here is done. That was the sentence literally that I heard. And it made sense because in the sense that, as a teacher at that point, I kept asking myself, like, why am I not happier? There's all these doors of opportunities. There's all these invitations I'm getting. There's all these things, but why am I not happier with this? So when I heard the message that it was time to leave, even though it was terrifying in a sense and didn't make logical sense, in my heart, it made sense because I was like, oh, this is why I was feeling that dissatisfaction. And so I left, but there wasn't anything I was jumping into. It wasn't like I could be like, okay, I'm leaving teaching to become a priestess. That was nowhere in my, in my aware consciousness. And I just was following this heart guidance. So it was the first few years was like a really painful, exciting, terrifying, everything wrapped into one of becoming a spiritual entrepreneur and really finding out, like, what am I here to do? Like, I got my Reiki training. I did all these things. I went down this whole meandering path. And it was probably the fourth year of that kind of like, what actually am I doing? Where am I being guided? That I made a very smart decision to hire a coach, to hire someone. And she was like, Lisa, like, what is it that you love talking about? Like, what are the things which seemed like such a simple and kind of like unimportant question in a way. I think at that point I dismissed it, like, why is she asking me this? I'm paying her money. Like, I should tell me, give me some other guidance. But she was like, no, by this point I had several clients. And I was like, well, I really, really love talking. Like, my favorite sessions are the ones where I'm helping my clients, which are pretty much all female, talk about their purpose, like their career, like what they're here, not career as in like networking and resumes, but like when they were in a career, mostly wellness professionals, therapists, or other coaches who were feeling kind of stagnant and were feeling like, I'm here to do more, but I'm scared. Like, those were the conversations I really loved having. And so she was like, oh, you're like a spiritual career coach. And I was like, what? And then that's kind of like that path started. So that was like, and it was all the same type of women. It was very sensitive women. It was women who cared deeply about the planet. It was women who had mystical gifts, but had never had like any sort of or very little training around them. They were just like intuitive, but they didn't exactly know how to tap into that, or perhaps sometimes had fears of that. So I started to recognize like, oh, these are the women that I'm here to lead. And so that was the focus of my first book, Answering Your Inner Calling. Like that was really like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm here to do. Yeah, those were the women that I was feeling guided to support. And within that, so that's what I did for several years. This kind of story started to unfold as I was helped. So what I was starting to help women with was heal past lives, right? It's like they would come into this kind of point in their career where they were being guided to share more of their intuitive gifts. And these like fears, such intense fears would come up. And it became clear that it wasn't just like, the normal fears that we have when we're going to put ourselves out there, but it was these like fears like, I'm afraid my kids are going to be taken away from me, or I'm afraid I'm going to get killed, or I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my livelihood. And yet at the same time, they knew, I know that's not going to happen, but why am I having these like intense fears around that? And so I had done a lot of past life work just because of my I think that's just part of my gift. I didn't know, but that was part of my gift that I have. And so I started doing that, integrating that. And in a lot of the sessions, it was lifetimes where they were priestesses, where they were healers, where they were, you know, betrayed by other priestesses or persecuted because of their healing gifts, or organized religion came and did something awful to them or awful to their family. And so there was a lot of that. It was like it was just like basically all my clients, even if they didn't come in thinking I have a past life I need you to help me with, it was where we would end up going. And I could see the relief and the healing that brought. I knew it personally from my own healing work as well. And so it was within that journey that at one point I was meditating again in front of Kali Ma. That's where I was going through a really painful initiation with one of my daughters. She was very, very sick. And I was very, very terrified. And so I was in front of Kali, and I was like, just kind of like, okay, like, Kali Ma has such a like badass, energy. Like she was, and I was like, I need that, I need that, because I was just really close to kind of collapsing in defeat. And it was in this moment that I just heard the word priestess, and it was like, I hadn't used, when I was healing, helping women heal these past lives, the word priestess would come up, but it wasn't something that I had really like gravitated to. But in that moment, it was like, oh, I write, because I'm writing my second book, which is called Priestess Rise Up. And this is a story I share. And I write how it felt like when the word priestess landed in my mind, in my heart, it felt like as light as a feather and as powerful as a lightning bolt. Like it was both of those. And so that really began kind of like, then opened up my like, oh my gosh, I'm on this priestess path. Like it all made sense, but it was also like something really important happened when I claimed that word, even though there were a lot of fears for me. And so then that got woven into all the work that I was already doing, that it was like, oh, I mean, my clients don't have to use the word priestess. They don't have to, it can be therapists, they might call themselves like a personal coach. But a lot of women are kind of being drawn to that word because I think we're reclaiming, we're really bringing that. That's why my book is called Priestess Rise Up. I do feel there's a calling for us priestesses to rise up. This is the lifetime when we get to do that. And so that's how I ended up here. That's like a little bit of that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And I feel like so many things that you shared, I really notice a pattern in a lot of the people that I'm close to or that I speak with. It's like there's this one moment where you're living this completely normal human life, and then it's like, wait, like this isn't what I came here for. And it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of changes. And so I'm so glad you shared about that journey, because I mean, even just the 4 years for you to try to figure out what you were doing and then find the coach, it just really goes to show that these kind of things take time, and we have to be really patient with ourselves. And I love how you really are so or you're such an advocate for reclaiming the word priestess, because I feel like it's so important in this divine feminine movement that we're in, that we take back that power, because there's been so many lifetimes, and a lot of those lifetimes, I'm sure that you're supporting women in healing now, where it's like we were harmed, or we were tortured, or we were hurt for having these types of gifts, or shamed for having them. And so it takes so much courage for us to take that word back and to honor our power.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I love that you started with just that whole patience that, this takes time, that it does take time. Obviously it's hard to quantify, but from the point where I left teaching to now, it's been 13 years. So it wasn't like, I think we can see things and feel like, oh, I'm just gonna decide like you said, I'm here for something different. I'm gonna leave, and there it is, and it's gonna happen. And when it doesn't, we feel like we've done something wrong. And that's how I felt the first 4 years. And I can still go through those cycles. It's a lot less intense, where I would be like, what's wrong with me? Why is this taking me so long? Why am I not finding the people I'm supposed to help? If this is my divine mission, why is this so challenging? And I do think that there's that spiritual maturity, right? That we're really being called to cultivate self-love and compassion, that it is, we're here for the long haul, right? And that isn't to discourage anyone. Like it's not like the first 4 years were wasted. I mean, so many amazing things were happening in my life. But I think that's a really important point of like, it does take time. And later you look back and you realize how perfect it all was, right? But in the moment, it can feel like it's going so slow. And so I think that's essential. And then, like you said, yeah, reclaiming the word priestess, I feel like, and to be clear, I'm not saying I'm the priestess guru, right? There's so many signatures of the priestess path. There's so many amazing women and individuals that are guided to that path. But I also know that it also chose me, right? That is something that I am bringing forth, and that removing the fear that we have of that word. And like you said, that it makes us a target, or it makes us, I feel like for my clients is one of two things. Either one, I'm going to be a target and get judged or hurt, or dismissed. The other end is people are going to think I'm a nut. They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm woo-woo. They're going to think I'm not, now I'm not a professional woman anymore, because I remember the first time I put modern day priestess in my bio, in my flyer description, I was shaking. I was just like, oh my gosh, people are going to think all of those things. I was like, they're not going to take me seriously. They're going to be like, how are you a priestess? Who made you a priestess? Like all the things. So it's such a courageous journey. I mean, it's such a courageous journey to walk the path that you're here to walk. Is
Yeah, I love that you shared that, because one, like you said, it's all just this perfect timing. I know for me, I've been working on my book for a little over 7 years now, and the Oracle decks and everything. And I look back and I recognize how I had to become the version of me that could actually bring it through. And that so much of that time, that at some points I was frustrated or annoyed that it was taking so long, I understand now that it was such deep preparation. And I love that you shared about how you were shaking when you were first added that modern priestess title, because it is so important for us to recognize that we can still have that fear and that worry of being taken seriously and still do this work. I mean, I channel aliens and mermaids, and at first, like, it was funny for me, because first it was like, oh, I'm a mermaid, okay, I can deal with that. And then I was like, wait, you want me to talk about aliens? And then
hard.
yeah. And then last year, when my star family was guiding me to start doing galactic readings, and of course, you were one of the first people that volunteered for that service. And I was like, this is crazy. Will people really take me seriously? This is what I'm doing now. And then it's weird, because after a while, it just starts to get ordinary. And then you have a new challenge of, oh, okay, well, now I have to bring this through, and I have to bring this through. But, it's just really recognizing that every step of the journey is beautiful, and just kind of surrendering to the magic and the beauty of it, of just recognizing that you can feel weird and awkward, and just keep going.
That's so important, Megan. I love that because I mean, if I could travel back, and I think we can. I mean, you have Hathor right there, and we definitely can time jump and all of that. And it's like, going back to when I first left teaching, and when I was terrified of using the word I mean, I was terrified of using the word coach, at some point, it was like, how can I call myself a coach? All the things, but like you said, we feel the fears and we do it anyway, right? That's the courage. But it's like, I feel like those of us who have been on this journey for some time now of doing that, of feeling the fear and having the courage, that there is a collective like healing that's happening where we're really starting to become ready, or I think we've been like getting ready to be ready, like to experience more ease in this journey, that even as I love that you brought up your book, because as you know, my second, I've had these timelines like it'll be done by this spring, it'll be done, my second book, and it's still not complete, but absolutely I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have never written that book before having this experience and that experience and that experience. So I do feel like, yes, there is the like, you're going to be scared or shaking, and we take the steps anyway. And I also feel like we're also starting to have the courage to be like, well, can I take this journey and have it be more at ease, have more, and your galactic star readings have been, I just have to say, I'm so glad you said yes to that calling, because they've been so powerful and so helpful to me, because my star family has been such a consistent message, like you're doing so many great things, amazing, but more ease, like less of the hustle and the struggle. And so I really feel like originally that's what the Priestess Path was. I do feel that we have memories of lifetimes when it was a struggle because it was the end of certain, like there was persecution, we hold trauma. But as I've healed more trauma, I'm starting to access those priestess lifetimes where it wasn't like that, where it was like, oh my gosh, it was joyful. There was a sisterhood. There was like, a community, like Hathor's, lifetime, right? That was like everybody celebrated each other. There wasn't these deadlines. It was this like creative expression. And I feel like we're so courageous to be, experience the struggle and all of that, have compassion for it, and also be like, and we're also we're rebirthing that new way, right? It's like that stretch. And so I feel like that's such an important conversation that so many of us are having, and you're definitely, bringing in those energies. So I just wanted to name that. I'm really thankful for that.
You so much, Lisa. And I feel like you're so right about like the ease. And what I've noticed about like healing past lives and walking my clients through healing past lives, it's like we witness the trauma. A lot of times it's just it needs to be compassionately witnessed. And of course we can go back there and like be that guardian angel to ourselves in those moments. And I do a lot of that in my client work. But what we also get when we revisit those memories and we kind of collapse those timelines and step back into the 0 point, we get all of those gifts and abilities back. So it's like every time that we honor a trauma, we also receive a gift. So I feel like it's so important that we recognize that, that there's so much healing, and that as we're all saying yes to this mission and stepping up in a bigger way, that we're starting to create that ease here again. And it's not always easy, because I feel like, especially for me, the past couple months, my big initiation has been my calendar and overbooking myself and thinking I can do more than I can, and operating in this very masculine way of like, it must get done. And it's a moment by moment choice to like really unravel that, and like you said, step in with more ease.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love everything you said. Absolutely. Because it is, well, to go to the beginning, like it is healing the trauma. It is then those gifts, right? Get received, like, oh, you witnessed it. I love how you said being your guardian angel to yourself in that lifetime, the gifts awaken. And as you were speaking, I was aware of also like, yeah, we're creating such a template, right? For others that are coming behind us, like, oh gosh, because of all this work we've done, just like people before us, other brave souls. So I was aware of that. And also like Yeah, that it is a moment by moment thing because most of us don't get that validation from our external world of like slowing down and trusting, right? There's even with the end of the year, as a business owner, I don't know how your inbox is, but mine is all like, what are your goals? What are your intentions? What are you going to do? Da-da-da-da, like, and it kind of feels like you're behind already and it's not even 2023 yet, right? And it's like, I love you said that masculine way. I do feel with the priestess journey, there is such of like the divine masculine within us, right? That honors that priestess path. And like, and I feel like I've been guided so much this last 2 years to get to know the divine, I know the wounded masculine really well, both internally and externally. But I feel like now it's been like, oh, get to know my healed masculine within me. And I hear you about the overbooking. I mean, I've gone through that whole journey and now trying to be very mindful about like, okay, what is the pace that feels for me right now? I'm just taking it 3 months at a time, right? What is the pace that feels good? And allowing myself and trusting myself and then not beating myself up when I forget and I overbook again, right? And it's kind of like just having compassion, like, all right, that's okay. The word courage just keeps coming to me over and over. It's like we're so courageous to do this. Like it really is a I tell my clients this all the time. It's a radical revolutionary thing we're doing. Like, it really is. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself that it's a radical revolutionary thing that takes so much courage. And like you said, it's just loving ourselves through this process and recognizing we're not going to unravel all this matrix and ancestral programming overnight and just be like, oh, yeah, I'm always at ease. I'm the perfect divine feminine and I'm so balanced. And we just have to have so much compassion for ourselves and just ask ourselves, rather than berating ourselves, get curious of like, okay, wow, this is what happens when I do this. This is what happens when I do this. Do I want more of this or do I want more of this? How can I make more of this happen? And how can I learn from this? And everything becomes data. And when you say everything is data, it's like there's just constant up levels and activations and information that we can use for ourselves. And then, like you said, create that blueprint and that template for others, which is so powerful. What would we do without the templates of Mother Mary or Kuan Yin or Hathor, and that's the path, the priestess path that we're on too, that, one day someone can call on the galactic soul signature of Lisa or Megan Mermaid and receive the archetypal programming that we courageously chose to embody through all of these human lifetimes.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And it's also, when you were saying, that we're not just kind of like floating on air and I'm always at ease. And it's like, I think there's such a people can have that sense of like, oh, Megan must just always be just kind of like chilling with the galactic family. I must just always be with Mother Mary, feeling like it's like, I mean, I feel Mother Mary, I really feel her presence, but I'm often like struggling and like crying, right? And I'm asking her, like, remind me, that's right, this is what I'm doing. But I also feel like it's also perfect because that helps us connect with others in such an intimate way, right? It all becomes the teaching as well. Like you said, it all becomes data, but it also all becomes the teaching, right? It's like, I know that I'm teaching what I came here to learn, right? So I can talk to my clients and students, and it's not coming from this place because I've mastered it all. So follow me and do as I do. But it's like, no, I'm in here with you, right? We're like, yeah, we might be ahead a bit because we're leading, right? And so we can lead them through that path, but it's also like we're in it. We're in the trenches. We're doing it along with our clients and our students and everyone who's drawn to our signature, as you said. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important, Lisa, because, you know, nobody's perfect. We wouldn't be on the earth plane if we were perfect. And I feel like sometimes I feel like I probably go too much on the other way, like being too honest and authentic about everything. But I feel like it's so important because it's like, if someone's looking at a leader and it just seems like they're at a place that's impossible to reach, it's not helpful. It's not relatable. But if you're like, oh, wow, like, Lisa has this amazing business, but she's still working on this, or, Megan is serving all these people, but, she's still struggling with their hot mess mom life sometimes. Like it creates so much less pressure of like having to reach a certain point of perfection before you can be of service.
Absolutely. I so agree. Because when I think of all the teachers that inspire me, I mean, yes, there's obviously wisdom and beauty there in all aspects, but absolutely there's authenticity and there's sharing of the struggle, right? And sharing of the things they've overcome. Like that's really helpful to me, because exactly, as we, our egoic structure is always comparing, right? And it's always like, oh, I need to be perfect, like you said, before I can do this, before I do my first live, I need to have all of this figured out, before this is. But it's like, no, like we this is how our human life is. We're divine, and we're in this human existence with a whole bunch of stuff happening around us, and we're all we're all being initiated all the time. It's part of this accelerated journey we're on, especially in this lifetime. So I love that you're authentic. I think that's part of your signature. It's part of your priestess signature, is this like radical authenticity, right? Of like, this is what I'm here to share. And I think everyone's being called to be authentic in their own unique signature way, right? There's like that's really important. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Lisa. So, what do you feel like has been your biggest challenge recently and like your biggest breakthrough?
Ooh, I would say recently it has been discernment. And it's like, and as you said, there's levels, right? There's always like, you get to a level, but I feel like the last 3 months has been this like real initiation of like things coming my way, like opportunities or relationships that logically seem like this is what I should do because of all of these things, but my heart, but it's like very subtle, because I feel like I've been initiated in this a lot, that my soul's like, okay, next level, right? So it's like this real subtle, like almost like my brain could talk me into like, yeah, you should do this because this and this and this and this and this. But my heart, there's like a little voice in my heart that's like, and like trusting that hesitation, like it's like that I feel like it's been this initiation in like a deeper level of discernment of what are my yeses and what are my nos, especially when it makes no logical sense. Like literally when, like as for example, one where, I started saying no to certain clients, like, which meant less income was going to be coming in. But it was a real heart. And again, all this intellectual stuff was saying, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. And it wasn't that it was people I didn't enjoy working with, but it was like a real, because that would have been easy to be like, oh no, they're not a good fit. But no, this was like a high level, like, no, this is what you need to do now. So that's been a real initiation. And I feel like I'm coming on the other side. I feel like this, like, oh, like a kind of a stronger deepening of that, like, oh, it's those subtle heart whispers that I wasn't as attuned to, that I've been becoming initiated to. And I think that kind of speaks of the breakthrough, right? It's kind of like it's like the challenge that led to the breakthrough. And I feel like I do feel, yeah, that has been a really beautiful breakthrough of being able to follow my heart in those subtle those subtle ways that I wasn't perhaps before, to be able to say, I'm going to invest my money in this thing that isn't for work, isn't for this, isn't all the things that I could like justify it. But it's like, no, this is just an example. This is the thing that my heart is really saying, and to do that. So I feel like that's such an important breakthrough, because that's how we're here to lead, right? We're here to lead from our heart. I mean, I know that can sound so cheesy, like lead from your heart, but this is like, again, radical, revolutionary, courageous, right? So that's what it feels like to me. Yeah.
Wow, it's so true. I love what you said about following your heart because I feel like on this journey, the deeper we go on the path, the more uncertainty it is. Like it's literally like the hermit card in the tarot. You got that little lantern and it's like you got to go to this step and then trust that like once you get that step, then you go to the next one and the next one. But I feel like that is the epitome of divine feminine leadership, to listen and follow through on our heart even when it doesn't make sense. And that's where the courage is of really listening because, it takes a lot of effort, first of all, to be able to cultivate that relationship where you can hear the voice of your heart. It takes a lot of work. And then to overcome like the chatter of the mind that thinks, well, how is this logical or is this going to work? And I experienced that myself last December. It's been a year since I broke off from a lot of the work that I was doing with another spiritual teacher and just really focusing on this. And there's been times, where it's amazing. And then there's times where it's like those valleys where you really got to trust that, like, if it was supposed to be happening, it would be happening. If it's not happening, it's not. And that's where you develop that trust in the universe. And then, it goes up again, and then there'll be another valley. And so it's just staying grounded and trusting that when you're on the right path, that even though you're going to have these ups and downs, that you can like ground into that energy of knowing, like, even if you don't know how, you'll always be okay.
I love that you share that. And I want to add that it's like, yeah, it's our mental chatter. And also like that sometimes like people in the external and sometimes people you like and respect will judge it, that will question it or will, and maybe not in a like, I'm not saying like in a violent way, but still in a way where, they just don't understand, right? And they can be making assumptions. I think that's been a healing for me, that it's like recognizing like, I know this decision is right for me, and I know this group of people are going to judge it this one way, right? As me being weak or blah, 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 all the things. And me having to be just okay with that. Like, like not engaging in a conversation or because it just wasn't the time for that. It was obviously, I know there's times where speaking is important, but in these situations, it was like my guidance was really just not engage. It's like, Mother Mary said, like, let them be wrong about you. That's what she told me. She was like, that's okay. Like that, yes, they're gonna be wrong about you. Because I had a part that was so like, oh, but they're gonna, but she was like, yeah, let them be wrong about you. Well, so many people were wrong about her, right? She said, like, about me when I was living my life, that lifetime with Jesus, being Jesus' mom, that lifetime. She's like, and you just bless them and keep going on your path. And that was a real, one of the most kind of tender initiations I had this year of like, all right, I'm going to make this decision, and people that you respect, that I think highly of, are going to be wrong about me for some time or maybe always. And that's okay. I'm just going to keep going on my path. Yeah.
Yeah. That's such an important thing to just really accept because, we're not ever going to please everybody. And it's so much effort trying to please people. And I would love to just hear a little bit more about all of the videos and things that you've been creating on YouTube, because I love seeing all of your weekly messages and all of the information that you're putting out. And this has been kind of a new thing for you. How long have you been on YouTube?
I've had videos that I upload to YouTube for a few years, but YouTube lives, I didn't start till the spring, I think, of this year. YouTube changed its rules. So that's how I was able to do that, because they had certain rules. And then I was like, wait, I'm able to do this now. And so, yeah, so even though, my book I'm not finished with my book, I've been teaching, teachings from my book. That was the guidance I received, that it was like, start teaching, before your book comes out. Like, this is what's going to really, first of all, the teachings are needed already, and this is what's going to deepen your understanding of them. So every week I do a Priestess Rise Up transmission on my YouTube channel. And it's Wednesdays. It's been Wednesdays at 2:30, but I think in the new year, I'm going to shift the time. But it's probably about 20 to 30 minutes. I do a simple teaching. I mean, the reason for those gatherings honestly became clear to me, like, probably after the seventh one. First, I realized, okay, it's important for priestesses to gather. Like, that's the one. It's like, it's important for us to gather. So I know in person is amazing, but how amazing is it that we can gather this way and have, women in the UK, women in Denmark, women in South Africa that are coming together, to the, like, it's like there's a beacon going out and they're like, finding it. So that's one thing that's really important, to gather together in ceremony, that it's not just me like, let me share teaching number one of my book and just kind of give information, but to really, yes, I do a teaching, but then every transmission, there's a ceremonial aspect of it, right? Where we go into a meditation. It doesn't take long, because I think that's one thing that we're reclaiming, we're normalizing, that we can go into ceremony. Like, this isn't to take away from the sacredness of ceremony, but that we can do it efficiently, that it doesn't require us to be in a temple or in an ashram or have 3 hours. That literally, we're the modern mystic, right? The modern priest is like that, we're allowed to, not only allowed to do that, we have, that's our birthright to do that, our power to do that. So I love that aspect of the every week, just gathering together, stepping into ceremony, and often Mother Mary is there, or any of the other amazing ascended masters, and to do co-create together a healing, a clearing, an activation. And so that's what they've really become, and it's so powerful every week to gather together, and it feels like a part of my service to humanity, really, to be able to do that, for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for offering those. And I'm kind of on the same page with you, where I was on TikTok going live at least every day for like 6 months. And then it just felt like the energy shifted again, and YouTube just felt like the right platform. So I feel so much better now that I've come here and I've started to create more content on here. And I think too, just the aspect of it being like evergreen and available, and even though it's live, that people can still access it. It's so nice.
Absolutely. It's like, I feel like it's creating this like library of our work, right? Because now I can tell people, if we, for example, inner child work often comes up, and it's like, oh, I have this whole novena on my YouTube channel about connecting with your inner teenager, right? So people can go back and look at that. And it's like, I can be amazed, like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for so long, that people can go back to like, oh, I watched this video you did 3 years ago on connecting with my inner teenager. And so I do feel like it's like we're curating our work, right? It's part of the legacy we're creating, and that people can, plus we're anchoring light into this platform, which is really important too, right? It's like, it's really important. So I love that we're here. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also loved what you said about creating ceremony. And I feel like we just need to make this more of like a regular everyday part of our life. Like ceremony can be 5 seconds. Like, I have a little mermaid altar, and I use my holy water, and I, set the intention. And then it's like, I go throughout my day. And even when I do lives or activations, sometimes that, we can do this very powerful transmission in just a few moments. Like, I feel like I love that you shared that, because it's so important to know that like we can dive into the sacred and have this moment of devotion, and then it can be very small but very powerful, and then we can go back and do our service and be in the 3D and feel nourished.
Yes, absolutely. Because as moms, as all the roles that we have, I taught meditation for about 7 years, and I realized the biggest resistance people told themselves was, I don't have enough time, or, I don't have the right circumstances in my life. And so it's really, I think we really, again, need to normalize, yeah, I can go into ceremony in 5 seconds. That doesn't diminish it. It's not coming from this place of like, oh, I'm just rushing through it, I don't take it seriously. No, it can be incredibly sacred. And to be able to know, like, I'm gonna do this moment of ceremony, and that's gonna reconnect me, realign me, so that I can be more present in my life, and like you said, nourish, but also receive divine downloads, right? It's like all the things, like that's really important. That's, yeah, we need to talk about that and normalize that, and release shame around that, because I feel, I don't know, I know I used to do this, but I feel like there's a lot of people holding themselves back from having these spiritual experiences, because they think, whatever, this and this has to be set in place before it can happen. And this isn't the lifetime for that. I mean, if there ever was one, but this is not the lifetime for that. This is the lifetime where it's now, right? It's like now, if you're being guided to go within, it's now, right? It's like, so yeah, I think I'm so glad we brought that up. Yes.
Yeah, and especially the shame aspect. That's so important because, my whole life is ceremony. I feel like it's like everything I'm doing, I'm teaching a class and it's like a meditative practice of being present, of like bringing in the information. Like I'm driving and I'm like in prayer. I'm doing something else and like, I'm receiving a download. So it's like we can have this human life and this divinity like co-create in this really beautiful synchronistic way. And I love that you shared that it's just about like letting go of it having to be hard or having it to be this complicated thing, and instead just recognizing how it works for us, and how to make it special and magical for us with all of the other things that we're doing as like a support rather than just one more thing that we have to do in the day.
Absolutely. I love everything you shared. Just the because that is our life is a ceremony, right? It is. It's like that is how it's supposed to be. I really feel like it, and again, taking the dogma and baggage out of the word ceremony, right? Because I know people can add that to it, but it's like it's this sacredness, is this remembering who we are, and like we are meant to integrate that more and more and more into our lives. It's not compartmentalized, right? Like the spirit, I think in the beginning of my life as a spiritual entrepreneur, it felt like that. Like I meditate in the morning for a certain amount of time, even though it was really challenging because of all the things I had going on. I would do it and then go to work and then come back. It was kind of like that. And maybe at that time that was part of what I needed. But I also do think I just kind of that's what I understood it was supposed to be like. I had all these like images of what a meditation should look like, or what it should be like, or when you should do it, or how long you should do it for, and all of that. So dismantling all that took a little bit of time, but then having the freedom, which doesn't mean you're not, again, it's not about removing the sacredness from it, but saying like, oh yeah, like there are no boundaries in how I can do this. It is meant to be enjoyable. Like we are meant to enjoy it. We are meant to enjoy it and be nurtured by it, and have access to it whenever we need.
Yes, yes. And that's what the mermaids teach. And I feel like I've kind of been on the same journey as you, where like we spent so much time in self mastery. But what the mermaids teach is that from self mastery comes bliss. It's like the freedom and the joy that you experience from mastering your body, heart, mind, and spirit. And it's not like it's perfect, but you create that work on yourself, and then it creates more freedom and flow and ease. And I think that's how the masculine and the feminine energies sort of dance within ourselves.
Yes, I love that. It is the dance. Absolutely. That flow. And yeah, because I do agree. I think we have been on similar paths. And I think there's been so many cycles in my life where it's been such a kind of like the warrior is like struggle, survive, get through this, and I am so really honor that time in my life, and also recognize, oh, I can step into another in another way. Like that's not sustainable anymore for me. It's like I know that because my body feels it differently right now. It's like, whoa, I can't push like I used to push, but not because I'm weak, but because this is my next level of mastery, right? Of bliss. I love how the mermaids say that, right? It's like, oh, now I'm not supposed to push, but flow, right? There's this like, so yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. And it's so right, because the mermaids talk about the divine mother as Yamaya, which is the divine qualities of God within water. And that's such the feminine, because it's like the flow, the receptivity, the magnetism. And it's not always easy to be in that space, but every time we're in that space, it's like, oh, this is how we can do it. Like it doesn't have to be hard. And then we forget and we're like, oh, let's do that other thing that's easier again.
That's so interesting, isn't it? How I love how you just described that, because I do feel like the more of those experiences we have, the more kind of our whole body craves it and wants to go back to it. But it's so amazing. What I find is like, yeah, I'm in those stages and I'm like, why do I ever want to do it any other way? This feels so much easier and better. But then when you're out of it, that way can feel so foreign. When you're in the struggle place, the flow can feel like, how did I ever get to the flow? Right. And so it's like I'm feeling Kuan Yin actually really stepping in and just like just this like energy of water and compassion, right? It's like, oh, when we're not in the flow, as we said earlier, just, just bathing in those waters of compassion, which are waters of compassion, right? It's like just like flowing in, like that's going to carry us right back to the flow, right? It's like that. I feel like that's that's a breakthrough for me, kind of that I've had that lesson over and over and over this year, really in poignant ways. Um, so yeah, so I'm glad that came forward right now because it feels really important.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that compassion is so important too when, I've noticed this year, especially for me, where sometimes I feel like so far and I'm like, wow, I've come so far. And then there'll be those moments where it's like those patterns or those behaviors come back in and it's like, oh man, like I'm overeating again, or I'm not sleeping enough, or I'm doing this. Like I thought I was over this. But the compassion that we can bring into that space of like, for me, especially just overindulging with everything is always my challenge. So I just really have extended so much more compassion to myself of like, it's okay. Whatever you're going through, like I talk to myself and I'm like, I love you unconditionally, even though you can't stop eating this, or you're doing this, or you're thinking too much about this dude, or whatever it is. It's just having that compassion piece of recognizing that like, even in those moments of struggle, we can still love ourselves. And it's the love that brings us back to the flow.
Absolutely. I love all, yeah, I talk to myself too. And for me, what's really soothing is like it's okay that you're feeling that, because I think I've judged myself so much for my feelings. I've always been a very, very sensitive person. And one of the ways I withhold love for myself is by judging my feelings, like, oh, why am I so sad? Or why am I feeling that? Or why? So that like just like it's okay that you're feeling that. Like it's okay. Just like that's so soothing to me. That's like such a self-love thing. And paradoxically, when I do that, the feeling often actually starts to dissipate. But I feel like Kuan Yin kind of steps in and like, it's okay, just that compassion, because we are human and we all have the things that we're we're processing and learning and relearning and relearning. So yeah, that's such an important quality for us to keep cultivating and practicing.
It
Yeah.
so is. Oh, it's been such an amazing conversation, Lisa. I would love for you to just share a little bit more about how people can find you, or if there's any projects or other things that you're working on that you'd like to tell us about.
Yes, thank you. Well, my website is my name, so lisaespinosa.net. That's all S's. So that's a good place to start. You can go there, and I have you could download a free sample chapter of my book Answering Your Inner Calling if you submit your email. So that's like a really good place to start, but also because once you're on my mailing list, I just do so much, right? So I'll send the reminders for the YouTube lives. Of course, you can always access, my free transmissions. But yeah, I have a lot coming up in 2023. I have a monthly Mother Mary Priestess Planetary Healing class. I have monthly, I just finished an online coaching class that I taught for almost, I think it was almost really 7 years. And it was time to let it go. But I'm so excited because I'm going to start teaching the things I taught there to a wider audience. So I'll be having some monthly offerings, for spiritual entrepreneurs, really about what we were talking about, right? Kind of combining the priestess path and that. So I would say signing up for my mailing list is the best way, because that way you'll be on top of everything that I'm doing. So you can do that through my website and my YouTube channel. On my descriptions of all my videos, I have a link also to sign up for my mailing list. And yeah, and I'll be doing a solstice, well, I don't know when this will come up, but I'll be doing a solstice YouTube live and other things. So yeah, I look forward to connecting with anyone who's guided to connect with my work. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And I'm going to be linking all of those things in the bio. And yeah, it's just been so amazing. I just feel like the energy of our conversation today was just like so like soft and just like,
Yeah.
like it felt so nice to just like drop into this energy and like just get to learn more about you and all the beautiful work that you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Megan. I felt the same way. I feel like that was, I mean, we didn't plan it that way, but I felt, I know we said like, okay, it's going to be perfect, however it unfolds. And I feel like that's so perfect, because that's the energy that we're really trying to want to embody and bring into the planet, right? There's like ease and flow, even as we're talking about these like amazing really powerful, courageous things. So I'm so glad. Thank you so much, Megan.
You're so welcome. Have a wonderful day, Lisa. Bye,
So
everyone. And you can learn more about me in the link in bio as well. And my new course, Galactic Leadership Training, is available. So check that out. And I will see you all soon. I believe in you and I love you.